Hello there, this is Benny.
And this is Kyle.
And you're listening to The Doctor's Watcher,
the podcast where I watch Doctor Who and I tell you all about it.
The podcast where there's an airplane going by in the background where I am recording. Hopefully it's not too distracting. Anyway, yeah. Kyle, what have you been up to?
Oh, I was trying to think of how I was going to answer that question because unlike usual, it's actually only been 2 weeks since we last recorded.
Yes, normally I have to wait 3 long, agonizing weeks to find out what happens next in Doctor Who, but this time I only had to wait 2 weeks.
You're getting like the full Doctor's Watcher listener experience.
I know. What you listeners have it so... Well, I guess I get to do 2 episodes at a time. We've talked about our recording and playback schedule before, but yeah, it's just like you folks had 2 weeks to wait, so did I.
So what have I done in the last 2 weeks? Honestly, not much. Not a whole lot to report in terms of video games. Still just playing Baldur's Gate.
Excellent.
I guess the main thing is that my partner and I are thinking about possibly buying a new car sometime soon.
Yeah, I saw your partner writing about how the person at the dealership didn't even recognize the model of the car because it was so old.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I know you've had that car since I met you, I think, which was like,
Probably, yeah, or close to that time at least.
Yeah, well, it might not be in the beginning, in the very beginning, but you've certainly had it since you moved out here to California, I think, which was like 16 years ago, 17 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, the car itself is a 2000 model, and I don't remember for sure when my partner's parents gave it to us, but it was probably within the first 4 or 5 years of the car's life, so...
It's been with you a while then.
It has, and I don't think we're actually going to get rid of it. I think we're just going to have 2 cars, possibly.
Yeah, well, maybe when it breaks down, you can, take the shell and put it in your backyard as a memorial.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually.
And in the meantime, in the past 2 weeks, I've been watching Doctor Who.
Oh, nice.
So I think I sort of revealed my hand. I tipped my hand, as it were, a bit when we were talking about this past serial the other day. Kyle and I were talking over chat about the gunfighters, I think.
Gunfighters, I think, yeah.
And how often the Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon comes up. And I think I revealed that I knew a little too well how often it comes up. And the reason I knew, as you might have guessed, Kyle, is that I had just watched them. So it seemed like a fun one, and because it exists and it's on BritBox, I went and watched it. And it's a good time.
Nice.
It does have surprising level of gun violence for a children's show, but I think a surprising level of fill in the blank for a children's show describes a lot of these early serials. And at least the Doctor does always talk about how much he doesn't like guns and he won't kill anyone.
Yeah, that's true.
So he's the voice of reason. Now, reminding kids that guns are bad. They are not cool, while all these very cool, awesome guys with guns do very, manly, tough gun things throughout the episode.
Yeah, as often as the Doctor was given a gun, I don't think he ever actually used it.
No, I think he accidentally fires it once when not actually him, when Doc Holliday shoots the gun out of the one Clanton's hand, and then but made to look like it was the Doctor who did it.
Right, yeah.
Well, the one thing I want to say, having seen it now, is that I really cannot overstate the prevalence and quality of the burp ship, that Masterson Wyatt Earp ship. Listeners, if you would be interested in these 2 kind of tough, manly men being unable to express their feelings toward each other, but having to kind of convey them only in their gruff respect for each other and their concern, or specifically Bat Masterson's concern for Wyatt Earp going into the possibility of the gunfight at the OK Corral, and always trying to talk him out of it because he loves him. Yeah, it's a good ship. If you're into it, watch the serial.
Yeah, we didn't really get into it much in the pod, but yeah, Burp is definitely a strong ship.
Yep. Well, we should not focus too much. Much like our heroes, we should not get stuck in the past, and we shouldn't focus too much on the previous serial, because we've got a new one to talk about. Kyle, won't you tell us about it?
Indeed. So this is the 38th episode of season 3.
Yeah.
And the first episode of a new serial.
Mm-hmm.
And it is called The Savages, Episode 1.
Yeah, I know you've told me that at some point we reached the point where each individual episode no longer has a title, and I think we've reached that point.
Yep, we have just reached that point as of this episode. This serial is written by Ian Stewart Black. It is the first of 3 serials, actually, that he wrote.
Cool.
And it was directed by Christopher Barry, who you might recognize because this is the 4th of 10 serials that he would direct.
Nice, Chris.
Yeah, totally. I guess it's more like the 3.5th, because he has previously directed The Romans, The Rescue, and 4 episodes of The Daleks.
Well, I think if you've done 4 episodes, I think that counts. Terry Nation serials are long as hell.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
You said this is The Savages episode 1, but don't you mean Doctor Who and the Savages?
That is a good question, because that is actually what the words said at the end of the previous episode. Mm-hmm. But no, they're just calling it The Savages, apparently.
Okie dokie. I mean, maybe it's been Doctor Who and all along. Maybe we just got out of Doctor Who and the Gunfighters, and we just didn't know it.
Yeah, it could be. That probably actually works for a lot of the serial titles we've had.
Yeah, I think so. So, Kyle, for Season 3, Episode 38, The Savages Part 1, Episode 1st, how'd you watch it?
So for this serial, I mostly watched LC29.
Loose Cannon. That must be a reconstruction.
Yep, it is the 29th production of the Loose Cannon reconstruction makers. And
listeners, you'll notice Kyle did say he mostly watched, so maybe one of the later episodes still exists. I'll cross my fingers.
Yeah, we'll see whether a later episode still exists or whether that was a teaser or spoiler.
Uh-huh.
I will say that this Loose Cannon production was introduced by Peter Purves.
Cool.
I'm not going to say a whole lot about what he said in the introduction because it's full of spoilers within like the first few seconds of him talking. I generally never watch the Loose Cannon introductions in my fun watches, only in my notes watches.
That seems smart because it does. This isn't the first time that you mentioned a spoiler coming up in those.
Uh-huh. So I will say a little bit though about what Peter said. He said that he didn't really remember very much of this serial.
That's a good way to start.
He remembered that he really liked the director, Chris Barry.
Cool.
And he remembered that Chris cast
the most glorious girl in it called Claire Jenkins, who had legs to die for. She was just gorgeous. I remember her very well indeed.
Oh, Peter, you old pervs. I mean, that's kind of a weird thing to say. I'm going to be, I, as much as we can joke about it, whatever, we also, I think, on the Doctor's Watcher, try to call these things out. And that is kind of a weird thing to say about your coworker, essentially.
Yeah, that was kind of a weird thing to say. But yeah, most of what he remembered was directly related to spoilers. So I might revisit this introduction at the end of the serial. We'll see.
Excellent. Cool. Well, Kyle, I'll bet you're wondering what the Cliff Dangler was last time.
Indeed.
And having just watched this episode for myself a few nights ago, I can tell you with some confidence that we are in the far future. No, on the horizon of the future or something. I won't be able to do it word for word, but something about we are on the far horizon of the future in an enlightened and peaceful time. And then a guy wearing furs and wielding a club wanders into frame after our heroes have stopped looking out the monitor.
Right. So it seems that the Cliff Dangler is that the Doctor's wrong.
Or that in the far future enlightened time, I think we were joking about the fact that now maybe furs and clubs make a comeback.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we were speculating that it's just a fashion choice.
Well, and one thing I noticed that I don't think that we commented on last time was that our fur-wearing, club-wielding dude seems to have really big feet. And I can't tell if that's just because they tried to make his shoes out of like a furry rug and didn't do a good job of it, or if we've got some sort of Bigfoot situation.
Yeah, it could go either way at this point.
At this point, he says,
So the TARDIS is in a ravine, and something it does seem immediately different to us home viewers, because the words on the screen say The Savages, cool episode title. Uh-huh. Then they say by Ian Stewart Black, cool writer credit. But then they say episode 1, and that's never happened before. So
interesting.
We already mentioned that, when I told you the episode title, but yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, I wonder how much that might have thrown, because they do it mid-season, and they're like, I thought this was season 3. I thought it was episode 38 of season 3, but it seems like we're just starting anew.
The Doctor leaves Dodo and Steven at the TARDIS as he heads out to explore, and sometime later, Steven is complaining about having to wait for the Doctor, who said that he'd only be gone for 5 minutes.
Yeah, bro. What'd you expect? You know the Doctor by now.
Dodo basically tells him that he should do what he wants instead of just doing what the Doctor tells him to do all the time.
Well said, Dodo.
Yeah, seriously.
So, I put it at a 50-50 whether the Doctor has just, wandered off because he was curious to go look at something, or if he's been bonked over the head and dragged off.
Well, we cut actually to the Doctor, and he has not yet been bonked over the head.
Not yet.
He is making his way through a sort of jungly area, and he has a handheld device that he's taking readings on.
Cool. He's got his little tricorder out.
What he doesn't know is that a couple people, wearing these animal skins and carrying clubs are hiding and watching him.
Nice.
Steven starts to look for him and call out for him. He decides to leave Dodo at the TARDIS as he goes to look for the Doctor.
We have only got 3 people in our party, but we sure have managed to split it in the maximum way.
Yeah, just splitting the Doctor off is not good enough for this party.
The most split this party can get.
Steven doesn't get that far from the TARDIS, though, before he hears Dodo scream and rushes back to the TARDIS.
It's a shame. I mean, it seems like Susan was only ever on the show to scream, and it's always a shame when these new companions who have kind of taken Susan's spot also have to take that particular task, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. And in this particular case, she wasn't even like directly in danger. It was basically just that up on like the ridge, you know, some ways away from where they are, she saw a man in animal skins and with an axe. But based on this information, Stephen decides that the doctor must be wrong.
The doctor was wrong. We're not in the future at all. We must be back at the beginning of that.
Or maybe you just don't understand fashion, Stephen.
Yeah, for real. When was the last time that you watched a runway show, Stephen?
It's called Fashion. Look it up.
The two men in the bushes who are watching the doctor are debating whether they should run away or kill the doctor. But then the doctor is approached by two soldiers who have apparently been following him, and they are carrying sci-fi weapons, and they're wearing sci-fi helmets that are basically just like a bunch of bands of metal kind of wrapped around their head.
Very cool.
They tell the doctor that they have come to welcome and to honor him.
Man, I feel like for most people that would be weird, but for the doctor, he's just like, well, of course you have.
Apparently, they know him as the traveler from beyond time.
Weird.
Yeah.
Is this the first time that, like, we've come across somebody who's heard of the doctor?
Other than, like, the Mungan the Toy Maker and that sort of character. I'm pretty sure it is, like, the first kind of, quote-unquote, like, regular people who've heard of him.
Yeah, that is true about the Toy Maker. I don't know if the monk had heard of the doctor specifically or if he just knew what he was because he, too, was a time traveler.
Yeah.
But you're right. The Toy Maker definitely knew him. But yeah, I feel like that's such a thing with modern Who, the legend of the Doctor and all these people throughout the universe knowing legends of him.
Yeah, this does feel like the first sort of like civilization that knows of him.
Interesting.
They have apparently been plotting the course of his space-time ship for many light years, they say.
For many light years. Not just a few.
They ask him about this handheld device he's carrying, his tricorder, because they thought that he doesn't use weapons, and he says that they're right, he doesn't, and that this is his reacting vibrator, which he does calculations with.
Is that what you do with a reacting vibrator? You do calculations.
That's what the kids are calling it these days. Or that's what the olds are calling it these days, I guess, because the doctor's an old.
I think, I mean, he is the youngest we'll ever see him, so in that sense, he is a kid.
That's true. They would really like to take the doctor to the city to meet the elders.
I'm sure he would love to go and be honored by the elders.
He would, but he actually wants to stay loyal to his companions, and so he tells them that he needs to meet up with Stephen and Dodo.
Wow, character growth.
But they're not really into that. They basically have one of the two soldiers, Edal, take the doctor to the city, while the other one, Exorce, goes to look for Stephen and Dodo.
Edal and Exorce? I love it. But also, Exordal?
Exordal, yeah, I think Exordal definitely has some potential here.
Cool.
Dodo and Stephen are under attack, basically, from the people in animal skins who are throwing spears at them.
Oh, yikes.
They run back to the TARDIS, and they're kind of like hiding behind it, And this is where Exors finds them and greets them.
Why don't they just run into the TARDIS?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wonder if the Doctor still has the key or something.
Maybe.
Dodo and Steven are very clearly confused by the presence of Exors, basically.
Yeah.
And Dodo refers to the people in animal skins as savages, which she's done a few times already in this episode.
Yeah, I think we were saying last time, this is really not a great term to be using for a group of people.
Exors says,
I think you will find that some of us are fairly civilized.
Then this isn't the Iron Age.
By no means.
The Doctor was right.
Well, I mean, you'd think the sci-fi gun would have tipped him off. But I understand that he's, understandably confused right now.
Yeah, just like trying to confirm exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Exors asks Dodo and Steven to come with him back to the city, so they do. Hey listeners, after a hard drive failure, I'm recording a few new mid-rolls to finish out Season 3. Remember to back up your data. If there's one, there's none. And also, tell your friends about this podcast and give us a nice rating and review. Back to the show. Bye. In the council chambers in the city, the leader of the council, Jano, is greeting the Doctor, and
Jano.
He's explaining to the Doctor that they've known about him for a long time, but they never actually thought that they'd get to meet him.
And will he please sign their Funko Pops?
So, yeah, the Doctor signs all the Funkos, and in return, Jano bestows upon him the office of High Elder.
This seems way too much up the Doctor's alley. I feel like this can't be real. This can't be, what it seems like.
Yeah, I think that's fair to start sort of being suspicious and questioning. These two attendants start helping the Doctor into his new High Elder robes.
Oh, that was quick.
Jano just continues fanboying at him, basically.
We recognize in you the greatest specialist in time-space exploration. You have taken this branch of learning far beyond our elementary calculations.
Oh, come, my dear sir. I know that you've been very responsible for vast scientific research. And at the same time, I always knew a race existed of great intelligence in this segment of the universe.
Thank you, Doctor.
Is he just making that up now, or or what?
Yeah, that's a good question. Is the Doctor just like saying what Jano wants to hear? Or, yeah, kind of like returning the compliment?
Yeah, it's like when someone tells you did a good job of something and you're like, yeah, you too did a good job of a thing.
Doctor's like, yeah, totally. There was smart people over in this part of the universe. I knew that.
Yeah.
Steven and Dodo arrive with Exors, and the Doctor gloats to Steven about being right about being in the future and knowing exactly where and when they were.
And yet.
Jano explains that their calculations didn't show that the Doctor would have anyone with him when he arrived, but they've got gifts for Steven and Dodo anyway for some reason. Dodo gets this hand mirror with these fancy jewels on it, and Steven gets a fancy dagger.
Which just so happened to be the things that Jano happened to have in his pocket at the time.
Back outside the city, Edal and Exors talk about how they don't trust strangers like this old Doctor, and that they should probably head back out on patrol.
So maybe not everyone in this future is quite so stoked to see the Doctor.
So they head out, they split up, and the less technological people who are secretly watching them go back to warn their families to hide. Stephen and Dodo are being shown around the city by two people who are about their same age, one named Flower and one named Avon.
Wow, Flower and Avon.
They're explaining how everything is climate controlled and everything, although Flower might want to feel real wind and rain and sunshine sometime.
Interesting.
Steven starts asking basically like what the deal is, and Avon explains,
Our scientists have made one simple discovery, and due to this they have found the way to give us all greater energy, greater intellect, and greater talents.
That doesn't sound just the slightest bit suspicious or ominous.
yeah, he won't tell them what this one weird trick is.
Well, of course, because future people don't want you to know this one weird trick.
This is something best discussed by the elders and your doctor.
Very intriguing.
There's a brief scene back in the council chambers where the Doctor explains that they seem cool here, but he needs to know how they achieved their advanced status, so basically he can decide like whether or not to accept their gifts and endorse their lifestyle.
Interestingly cautious of the Doctor. I wonder if he's learning.
Yeah, I feel like in previous serials he would have just gone with it.
Yeah.
We cut to a less technological person named Nanina.
Nanina?
Yeah.
Are those all N's? I love it.
Nanina is played by Claire Jenkins, who's the actor that Peter Purves likes so much.
Oh. All right.
There's a kind of a long sequence with very little dialogue. It's basically Nanina making her way through the ravine and like hiding from Exorce, trying to get back to the families, the less technological people families, to warn them of the soldiers in the area. There are, a couple other less technological people who, were with her. They're kind of watching from a distance, but they're not really able to do anything to help her escape or get away from Exorce. And, Exorce is trying to find her and catch her in the ravine. There's some shouting and screaming and some running and, a couple telesnaps that I can sort of see why Peter Purves was into her. And eventually Exorce does manage to shoot her with his light gun.
Oh, shit.
And this basically shoots a beam of light at her, which causes her to like freeze and basically get moved around by the gun.
Oh, interesting. Like some sort of tractor beam type situation.
Yeah, it's sort of like, a personal tractor beam.
It's, what wasn't the villain in The Incredibles? Didn't he have a thing like that?
I never actually saw
all right.
The Incredibles. Jano is explaining to the Doctor that all forms of life feed on other forms of life. They're listening to Tool playing in the background. It's, gotten to the bit of life feeds dumb life, feeds dumb life, feeds dumb life. Jano's like, yeah, that.
Well, that's the reference that went over my head, but okay.
But he says that their society has figured out how to tap into life energy directly.
We have learned how to transfer the energy of life directly to ourselves. We can tap it at its source. It is as though we were able to recharge ourselves with life's vital force.
And who are you transferring that from there, Jano?
Yeah, that is a good question.
I think I'm starting to piece together what's going on here.
Yeah, so basically they store life energy in these big vats, and then they dole it out to members of their community. The Doctor surmises that this would require a very high form of life as the source, and Jano confirms this.
That is true, Doctor. We absorb only a very special form of animal vitality.
Meanwhile, we cut over to Exorce, who is taking Nanina back to the city. You know, he's kind of like guiding her with the light gun beam. And he's ignoring the old man from the less technological people who's asking Exorce to take him instead of Nanina.
Oh, shit. I guess he doesn't have enough life force.
It's something, yeah.
Damn.
Flower and Avon are trying to continue showing Dodo and Steven around the city.
Cool.
Of course, I should mention, you know, in Doctor Who, when we talk about a city, it's usually like a giant indoor space with corridors and rooms.
We love it, yes. Hopefully throw in some matte paintings. Possibly some models.
So they're showing Dodo and Steven around the city. There's this door that Dodo wants to go through that leads to outside of the city. But Flower and Avon say that they're not allowed to go out of the city, and that they don't really need to because everything that they want or need is here in the city.
Flower and Avon are like, we don't have the budget for that. Please come check out this corridor. It looks like every other one that we've passed through.
Dodo tries asking them about the less technological people outside in the animal skins and whatnot. Of course, that's not the term that she uses, but that's the term that I'm going to keep using.
I mean, based on the title of the serial, I think we can guess which term she uses.
Yeah. Flower and Avon say that the guards are here to keep the city safe from those people. They try to continue the tour. Dodo kind of hangs back for a minute, and she's looking out a window outside of the city, and she sees Exorce taking Nanina into the city. We cut to Exorce taking Nanina down a corridor. He puts her into a cell, and then we cut over to a room with a gurney with an old man strapped to it.
Oh, boy.
And a lot of scientific equipment in the room. There's a scientist complaining that the old man's vitality reading is 17.4, which is too low, and no one here can follow instructions. Luckily, the old man's recuperative charge is high, so the scientist thinks he's probably going to be okay. He has an assistant help the old man to his feet and escort him to the exit of the room. And then Exorce brings Nanina into this laboratory room, and the scientist starts complaining to Exorce about how late he is as they start preparing to do the energy transfer on Nanina.
And they both start saying, essence! Essence! Time for some essence.
That's another reference that I'm going to not catch.
Yeah, that was Dark Crystal. I had a feeling that one might not work, but I think this is the episode for both of us just lobbing references over each other's heads.
I have actually seen Dark Crystal once, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And only once.
Well, I recommend checking out Dark Crystal Age of Resistance on Netflix, assuming they still even have it on there. Although they canceled it after only one season, it was one beautiful, very well-made season. So
nice. Steven is talking to Avon and Flower about why they're confined to the city. And Dodo uses this opportunity to slip away and start exploring on her own. Person of action.
Person of action. I mean, still counts as splitting the party, but I think in this case, I think if we look at it as Stephen, like, intentionally keeping the guides distracted while Dodo slips away, I'll cut them some slack on this one. I'll give them a pass.
Well, a slight spoiler, it becomes clear later on that Stephen was not intentionally distracting them.
He turns around and like, and what do you think, Dodo?
So she slips away, she's exploring, and, not very long into her exploring, a door closes behind her and she's unable to get it open again.
Uh-oh. How high is her recuperative charge?
Back at the council chamber, Jano is unintentionally demonstrating to the Doctor that the culture may be advanced, but it hasn't advanced beyond 1960s sexism, when he says,
Doctor, do you realize that with our knowledge we can make the brave man braver, the wise man wiser, the strong man stronger? We can make the beautiful girl more beautiful still. You will see the advantages of that in the perfection of our race.
Amazing. Wow. There are times, when I see stuff like that in these shows, where I'm like, what were they thinking? Like, they must have been aware that, like, feminism existed in the 60s. It's not like they had no concept of it whatsoever. Obviously, some nuance wasn't quite widespread yet at the time. But for stuff like that, I just had to, I don't know. Kyle, I don't know.
Yeah, we're perfecting the race, which means that men are braver and wiser and stronger, and women are more beautiful.
Oh boy.
Stephen and Flower realize that Dodo is missing. So they start looking for her while Dodo continues exploring. She has found a dark corridor, and she's going down this corridor, and she turns a corner into another corridor, and then she becomes frozen with terror, basically, as a less technological person lurches toward her with their arms outstretched.
And then the words on the screen say...
Yep, she screams, and the words on the screen say, Doctor Who, William Hartnell, Stephen Peter Purves, Dodo
What?
Jackie Lane.
No, next time... Well, I guess next time is more the Savages.
They didn't give us a next episode. They just went straight to credits.
Since we don't have individual episode titles, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to drop our theme music sting that I usually put right after the next episode words.
Right here.
Cool. Hope you liked that placement, listeners.
This is a promising serial. I think, you got your sci-fi people, you've got your future dystopia, you got your less technologically advanced people, some of whom are apparently quite attractive to Peter Purves, at least. And I strongly suspect it's going to be one of these heavy-handed 60s sci-fi allegories where the people who seem advanced and futuristic are the real savages, and then we look into the camera and widen our eyes.
Yeah, I mean, we're only one episode in, but it does already seem to be heading that way.
Yeah. Oh, cool. What notes did you have for us, Kyle?
So I think my only end note here is that I recently introduced a Doctor's Watcher tradition of saving the serial name until like the end of the first episode. This is probably the last time that tradition happens, but I will say that I am calling this serial the Less Technological People.
Yes, this time because we can provide our own serial name. Interestingly enough, the last time we made up our own serial name, I think it was the one with the cave people.
I think it might have been, yeah. I'm not sure if we've done one since then or not.
Which also had these, folks in furs of less technologically advanced weapons. So, here we are again. Cool. Well, thank you all for joining us for another episode, and we'd like to thank Circuit23 for the awesome theme song that he made for us. You can find him on Bandcamp and SoundCloud and write to him at circuit.23@gmail.com. Thank you, Kyle, for watching Doctor Who and telling us all about it.
And thank you, Benny, for listening to me talk all about Doctor Who.
And thank you, listener, for listening to me listen to Kyle talk about Doctor Who. We'd love to hear from you. I don't know if there's still time to send us questions for the Season 3 wrap-up episode, but send us questions anyway, or send us your thoughts anyway, anytime. You don't need to wait for the wrap-up episode. And you can reach us at thedoctorswatcher@gmail.com or tweet us, XYZ us at Dr. Watcher.
Indeed. And come back in 2 weeks to hear about Less Technological People.
Yep. And leave us a 5-star review and tell a friend. Bye!
Bye! Oh yeah, I forgot that bit.
We play games, we dance, we go hunting. Our life's very happy. We do everything we want, go everywhere we want.
Do not go that way.
I thought you said we could go anywhere.
Well, it leads to the world beyond the city.
Don't you ever go outside? Oh, I'm not allowed to.
There is no need.
Yes, that's right. Everything we want we have here in the city.
What about the men we met outside?
Well, they're the guards. What, to keep back the savages?
The savages?
The men in animal skins.
You saw them?
They threw spears at us.
Yes. Well, the guards are to keep these people away. That is why we seldom go beyond the city.
Let's forget such a dismal topic. Come on, show you the stadium. There's going to be a celebration there tonight, especially for you.